Welcome once again to the Sutherland Report. Thank you so much for you spending your time with me. And I'm continuing my interviews with prospective parliamentary candidates for Reform UK. And I have a lovely guest to bring on now. I'm going to bring on Barbara Kaya, who is standing in the constituency of Stalybridge and Hyde. We will go through our usual geography lesson, and Barbara will very, very kindly point out where the constituency is in regard to our great nation of the UK. So I will bring her on. Barbara, utter delight to meet you via the digital medium, and thank you so much for spending your time with me today. It's very much appreciated.
Thanks to you, Matt. Really appreciate it.
No, not at all. And I know how busy you are, and I know the juggling game that so many of us are doing. So if I'll put up this map. I've been using this map. If you point out the rough area, there is a clue. Manchester's on there. So
Yes.
So if everyone, you're in the Manchester area, your constituency, yes?
We are right. Indeed. We're East Manchester.
Right. I'll bring up the constituency map, which is here. And there we are.
Yeah.
So it's, as people are drawn to the top of that diagram, they can see the region of where we are and within Manchester there. So thank you. Barbara, out and about, let's start off with the really important question. What concerns are your constituents are you finding the constituents are raising? What are give me an idea of some of the conversations, the flavour that you've been having with the amazing people of Stalybridge and Hyde?
Well, first of all, to clarify, I didn't explain fully to yourself there that we're actually Stalybridge, Hyde, Duckingfield. We cover Duckingfield, which is another town, Mosley and Longdale. Now, we seem to be a constituency of two halves, really. We've got the urban areas of Stalybridge and Hyde and Duckingfield that are little towns, and then we go out into the more rural area, heading towards the peaks. So we've got a real mix. In the towns, the concerns are definitely degeneration of the towns. Typical northern towns, there's been a real degeneration of the towns over the years. I'm obviously, lived all my life in Tameside. I actually come from Denton, but I've seen the decline. I've seen the decline over the years. And I think that's and the frustration that nothing's been done. I mean, we've had a Labour candidate, I think since Labour was formed, I don't recall there ever being anybody but Labour in the constituency. And they just don't seem to appreciate the lack of investment. They don't seem to, because they get voted back every time. They expect to be voted back in. They don't appreciate and want to and just take the constituency for granted. That's the feeling I get from a lot of the people. That's how I felt in the past. Frustration. So the general decline of the city town centres, litter, violence and crime, shoplifting, all the general things that you find in a lot of these towns in the north. With the rural areas, I mean, I have a great sympathy for the farmers. I just think that we've got a detachment now from the farming community. In fact, in some ways, with the rise of veganism and things, the local farmers, who are mainly beef farmers, and probably beef and livestock farmers, they're not appreciated the same. And I think that's so sad when they work so hard. It's good that we're sort of moving towards veganism and sort of different types of crops, but we still need our local farmers, and the prices have been you know, affected. The supermarkets have just got control of the prices, and for years now, nobody's had the back of the farmers. Nobody's looked after the farmers, and I do have a real sympathy for them, especially the smaller local community farmers who, once, if they go because they can't afford to, if they can't afford to continue doing what they're doing, then we'll know. Then we'll notice when we've no longer got those farmers producing the milk, producing the meat, keeping our beautiful countryside, protecting it from, you know, and just, I mean, the farming community has been for centuries. We've had it for centuries in this country. And to just look at the cows grazing, to look at the sheep grazing, just takes you back to a time before all the industrialisation. So I think they're important, and I think they need to be spoken up for.
I'm getting that picture of some of those beautiful Constable paintings, which describe our country very much. So you've raised a number of issues. One important issue. So food security really is that is part of this discussion, because as you said, if we get rid of the land, then we hand that over to somebody else and we can't get that back. Just in an interview the other day where another candidate, Peter Skeets in London, was saying that once that farming land goes, if it's handed over to housing projects, then of course you can't get that back. So so people are concerned about crime. Is there, within the constituency, are you saying that there is not enough of the police men and women on the ground?
I would say so. Yeah, absolutely. It's just that they're not visible anymore. I know there's cost cuts, but they spend that much time now box ticking, filling in forms, and not enough time on the beat. I think everybody feels that. It's nationwide, but just to have the visibility of a policeman on the street, you know, I recall it when I was a young girl, and it just is that little, you know, barrier. It just is a reminder to people who want to shoplift or cause harm or whatever. You know, it's just there. I think the visibility is important, and sadly we have lost that at the moment. You know, they're just not there, and it's not the police force's fault, but I think we do need to just take a step back to the way things were a bit, and just slow down and just think about things and bring back some of the things that worked. It worked to have a policeman on the street. It worked. It was a deterrent. I talk to people, and it's almost feeling like it's becoming a bit lawless. I mean, that's one of the reasons I actually went into politics, started with Reform UK, because I'm just, you know, like everybody else, I've just always been interested in politics, but just got on with my life. But I was getting so frustrated at the lack of common sense within our decision making, within our policies, and I found that in Reform UK, they'll listen to the grassroots people. They'll listen to our ideas, and that is what I love so much. So, you know, going back to the police, going back to just bringing back a bit of common sense into our lives is what we need, and that's what Reform UK is all about.
Are you finding that people are having difficulty finding appointments at their local GP? What about hospital infrastructure? Is that being reflected in people's concerns as well?
I mean, I think that's just a general thing. People haven't specifically mentioned it to me, but I think it's just a general malaise of the NHS now. That the problem with us as a country, as people, we put up with things too much, and we sort of accept now that we have to wait 2 weeks. We think it's okay that we have to wait 2 weeks for an appointment, you know. And then from there, I mean, I was in the local hospital, Tameside Hospital. I went there a few weeks ago with my daughter, and we walked in, and it was we went at night time just to avoid the queues. We went at night time, and it was a 13-hour wait. And it's like, do we really wait that long?
Wow.
And we did, but it's like we accept it, and it's just. But at some point, if we just keep accepting it, we're going to get pushed too far, and people won't accept it. So that's why we need to take a step back now. But yeah, I mean, I think with the people are concerned, but we've started to accept it. We've started to accept this poor service, which Reform UK don't. They're like, it's not acceptable. This isn't right. You know, we're just falling behind in everything, whether it's the NHS, whether it's infrastructure building. We're just falling behind because there's been no long-term decisions made. Even HS2, whether you believe in it or you don't, make a decision, do something about it. But we've just ping-ponged and lost years, and it's just escalated the costs. But this is the frustration. It's just going from, our politics is moving from either, you know, Labour to Conservative, Conservative to Labour, and we're just not progressing. Everything is a 5-year short-term fix. And for me, that's a lot of the problems. This is where a lot of the problems stem from, whether it's education, whether it's infrastructure, whether it's the NHS. No long-term, they're frightened, they're too frightened. They just want to be re-elected. They want to be popular, and they just don't want to make the decisions that need to be made for this country. Whereas Reform UK, we're putting our head above the parapet and we're saying, you know, this is what needs to be done. Things need to change.
Well, to encourage you, you're not the only one, of course, that stepped forward and meeting some incredible people who are working hard, running businesses, etc., and have reached an exasperation level, and reflect and say exactly what you say within the constituency. Do people, and you're there, do people feel that the council is being cost effective? Do they feel that the councillors are listening to that? Right, you're shaking your head. Go.
Definitely not.
Right.
It's so sad. So as I say, Labour Council recently, I mean, I love the green belt. You probably got that from my introduction. Walk my dogs. I have still got a horse, riding around. Love the green belt and want to protect it as, you know, as best we can do. The local Labour Party, again, the local Labour councillors are so short-sighted. So there was a campaign for, there's a beautiful park called Stamford Park it's actually at Stalybridge. And they had a beautiful conservatory. And I had to take my daughters there when they were young, these little pen area and everything. It's a beautiful park, got this beautiful conservatory. Now, there's been a campaign for some while because the Labour council wanted to demolish this beautiful 100-year-old conservatory. So there was a petition. Apparently was the people petitioning against this demolishing of the conservatory raised funds, and were trying to, you know, get it done by people offering the services free. So there was a real campaign on. They really felt strongly about it. They had the local elections. They waited till the local elections and the Labour council were re-elected, and then they demolished the conservatory. And there has been outrage. It's so sad that this heritage can just be smashed up when there was people there willing to give the time free. You know, I even thought that maybe, you know, local communities, local schools could have used it and to sort of grow plants and little things and make seeds and stuff, learn from that, learn the nature, which goes back to the farming, and then perhaps sell them on for a little profit, just to sort of, it's just something imaginative, something innovative. But the local councils just haven't got that. They just want to bulldoze everything, which leads me on to the other area, which is Godley Green Village. Again, they're proposing this massive village that will take swathes of beautiful countryside, green belt that we have in Godley and Hyde, and just basically turn it into a village to, you know, obviously for housing. But there's no thought of the infrastructure. We're already clogged up as it is. I know we need more houses. I know we can't be NIMBYs, but it is quite urban where we are. This is Hyde area. It is quite urban, and you need those areas that you can go and escape from the greyness of the urban. So I've been not strongly part of that campaign. I've supported it, so I'm not going to take credit for something that I haven't done. But I have always been there and supported while they've been doing a fantastic job of trying to fight the building of this godly green. Again, not listening to it, the Labour Council not listening to the local residents and the concerns with the infrastructure, floodplains. We all know that now that, you know, you concrete over these areas, you cause floods. But the other thing is, and this is how I got into politics, this is how I got into Reform UK, is the building on greenbelt, on brownfield sites. Nobody's sort of, you know, I know people do say, let's build on brownfield, but let's really think about it. Let's really think about building on brownfield sites in the town centres. So what happened, the reason I got into Reform UK, I was a supporter after 2016 Brexit. I was just a supporter. And they sent an email out to supporters saying, this is where the grassroots, the very grassroots Reform UK, sent an email out asking for suggestions of how to improve your local town centres. So I sent in my idea, which was rather than trying to prop up, and I know this will disgruntle some business units, but I'm just being practical. We do use online a lot more now. So my idea was to bring more people back into living into town centres. So I call it town centre living. Like we've done in the city centres, revitalise them with living in the city centres. I thought to do the same with town centres. Let's bring people living back into the centres, where, so when it's populated, less chance of crime because people are around all the time. Then the shops that are being served, there's people in there already. You've already got your infrastructure because you've got this great bus route, you've got your train stations, you've got your roads. So if you're living within the centre, you've got a more stronger community, you'd have your stronger communities. But it needs obviously a lot of imagination, you know, and work. But it could be done. So it's just an idea. So I sent this idea off to Reform UK. They liked it. They asked me to do a pitch. I went to Southport, did the pitch, and they accepted me as a candidate. And I actually ran in the 2019 elections as a candidate for Gorton. So, you know, they listen. That's my point. It's that Reform UK, they listen to ideas. And I mean, my idea might not be the right one, but it's an idea. It's something a bit different. It's something that is not just filling the town centre with betting shops, you know, or just shutting up the shops, or, you know, it just would put, you know, a bit of investment. This is what people are crying out for. A bit of investment, a bit of imagination, just something rather than the same old. You walk around every, you know, northern town around the north, and it's the same story. They're just, people have started going online and buying online. I think we should come back off that. I think, you know, it's just too instant, and I avoid as much as I can buying online. Time limits, obviously, you need to. I understand that people who are busy with families, I've been there and done that, but it's just, we're again just become this generation that wants everything instant, wants everything, just wants everything easy, and it's not sustainable. You know, it's not sustainable. I mean, we talk about net zero. I'm a big supporter of protecting the environment, big supporter of living sustainably. You know, I was brought up that way. I was brought up, we didn't have, you know, have 10 carrier bags when we went shopping. My mum had just shopping bags and would fill those shopping bags. So I'm a big believer in sustainability, but it's got to be realistic. It's got to be realistic targets. I mean, this house that you can see that I live in, I've refurbished it. And at the time when I did it, I decided to go all electric. Thought, brilliant idea, I'll go all electric, look after the environment. So I've got an electric system. It's a wet, they call it a wet system, but it's an electric wet system, electric pump. I can't afford to put the heating on now. It's just crucifying because, of course, just my luck, straight after I installed it, there was all the fuel prices escalated and haven't come back down, and they won't. But I'm only fending for myself. These families, and it really made me think. From being the person who was, we've got to get to net zero. Which I do want to look after the planet. I do want to take care of the planet. But we've got to do it responsibly. We've got to do it realistically, because I think of all these people who have got children, small families, and need to put the heating on and can't afford to, or having to restrict. And we've got ourselves into a real mess. The government, the consecutive government, should have been thinking about this 30, 40 years ago. They've just let everything happen. Everything's happened so quickly. There's been no control. And now we're paying the price for it. These insulation of homes, that should have been done years ago. It should have, practical ways. It's just not long-term thinking, and it's all coming to fruition now. It's the perfect storm, and again, that's why Reform UK are doing so well, because people have had enough. People have had enough, and they're putting their head above the parapet and saying, no, enough. We've got to do this practically and sensibly, and take everybody with us along the way. We need to get to net zero. We need sustainability, but we need to do it, with the people with us, and and that they can afford to do it, basically.
I think what is a theme that's going through what you're saying is stepping back, is looking at things as an overview, and trying to have a long-term approach, a long-term plan.
Absolutely.
You've raised this very sad incident of voting in the Labour Council. They're not listening to the local people in regard to the heritage, so they decide to smash down that beautiful 100-year-old plus conservatory. And I can fully appreciate what that would have looked like, because there are a number of those, of course, around. And you're talking about our heritage, our past, which you're respectful of, which other people within your constituency are respectful of. It's always interesting, yes, to care for the environment. There is a big talking about that. The last thing people want is plastic bags in rivers and strewn all over hedgerows and all the rest. Absolutely. And I think you also raise a very important point from your own life experience, which is about converting your beautiful house all to electric. Prices go up. The whole net zero debate is something that we do need to step back and see it, because if it means that people of a certain age are then they're not going to put the heating on, then far more people die of cold than they do of the heat. So I think people they need to reflect on that, and is reflecting on that in the policies, and also how, if you are then going for the whole thing of net zero, then how do you actually produce things anymore? How do we actually have an economy anymore? Where is the grown-up conversation? Because that needs to happen. Barbara, what about slightly taking in a different angle, because this is important? What about sports facilities in the area? Are there enough swimming pools for young people to learn how to swim, exercise? And of course, that's always benefit, which means if we're exercising, then we're not going to have to hopefully use the NHS resources. What about those kind of things? School places, are there enough places for people to go to the particular schools that they would like to send their children to? And also, what about transport in a country area? Are bus services being restricted? What are your views on those issues? What's happening?
With the local schools, people haven't particularly discussed those issues with me as much. The transport situation. I mean, I know there are train stations. Actually, there's quite a decent train service through from Mosley and in Stalybridge, etc. The problem is that they don't always run, and obviously we've had issues with a lot of cancellations recently. With school places, I'm not entirely sure, to be honest. I've not really had, because my children are all grown up, I've not had those issues for a long time. With regard to swimming pools now, when I was a young girl, we had 2 swimming pools. We had one in Droylsden, one in Ashton. I believe those 2 have closed down. Or there is a community centre in Denton, which is local to Tameside, but it's not in our area. There is a small swimming pool in Hyde that's, but I don't think they've got like the lanes for swimming. And I totally agree. I mean, I was taught to swim at school. We used to have PE every week at school, and they've been lifelong skills. They've been lifelong skills that I've always enjoyed sport. I used to play in teams and things, but it's just, you think that sport is just an activity to sort of for a bit of fun, but it's more than that. It's your coordination. It's just understanding, getting into routines and just having that discipline, teamwork, playing as a team. But it is fun. As I say, I still swim now. I started swimming in my local pool again recently, and absolutely love it. But yeah, I absolutely agree. Within the schools, we seem to have stepped back from that, and as you quite rightly say, start young with them, teach them to swim, have them anticipating in being involved in PE and games and sports. I know it's not every child's cup of tea, but it's part of a lifelong learning. It's a part of a lifelong thing that once you have that, and you think that you might not enjoy something, and then you find that you do. You find what you enjoy, but it's part of a lifelong support to keep you fit, and to get. The problems with when you put on weight, it's not just the actual weight, it's the effect on joints, it's the effect on everything else. It's a massive impact on your life, being able to move, and then and it's just a huge restriction, and people get caught in a sad cycle at the end of the day. So yes, sport and availability to and access to swimming areas and gyms, and even, I don't know, it's not particularly a policy, but if free access, because it's so expensive to join these gyms now. It's like £20 a month, and everybody can afford things like that. So it should be, for me, it should be part of the community. That type of thing, your sports, your swimming, this should be a centre of a community. And I say, bring people together. You've got your team sports, you've got your individual sports, you've got your gym. Yeah, so important. And encourage these clubs that play football with the kids. I love to see that. You see these dads that get involved and see the children, watch the sons or the daughters playing football and stuff, or whether it's volleyball, hockey, whatever. But it's again a family thing to do as well. The children go and do their activities, and the parents watch. So very important, yeah.
Because it relates to what you're talking about when you're saying about regenerating towns, getting people to move back into the towns. Look at the brown sites, because you're talking about social community cohesion, aren't you? And then increasing that footfall there, so that jobs and businesses can then thrive. Barbara, at this point, it'd be really good to say, how can people actually reach you? How can they email you? Is there a phone number they can get you on? I know you've got the Reform UK email, etc. Just without putting you on the spot, I'm not. So I'm putting you on the spot. Do not worry. So I can put any details in the description, but they can reach you on what email? What email could they get hold of? You do have a.
You've caught me.
Do not worry. I should think it's Stalybridge and Hyde at reform.uk or reform.com, but I will put that in the description. I think at this point, no, that's no problem. And then at this point, it's really important, because you want to hear from people. You want to, you want to do that as you're out and about. Going back to the farmers, has there been pressure on the farmers to solar panel their fields if they suddenly think, I'm struggling for money here? Is there the big green issue environmental push from central government to them? Have you come across that?
I've not heard that personally. I will say, in fairness, we have had a solar panel put on. There's a United Utilities area in Godley Green, not in Godley Green, in Godley Hyde, and they have solar panelled. And I thought that was actually a good idea, because it's not intrusive. It's just a reservoir that's had the solar panels put on top of it. And I thought that was actually quite innovative. And I think, why not? Nobody can see it. So that was a positive one for me. So I have seen them there. But as far as the fields, I mean, that would be a devastation why would we put, when we haven't got the land? In China, they can do that. They've got masses of land. They can cover the land with solar panels. We can't. We haven't got that capacity. We need to. I mean, I know it's expensive, but wave technology is one option. They're coming up with ideas all the time, and they will get there. Whether it's nuclear fusion, they will get there in time. But in the meantime, let's not do these silly things that devastate our countryside. Let's not, just, as I say, short-term fixes of massive wind farms that to make them cost an absolute fortune is, has a massive impact on the in the environment, and then they've got this short lifespan, etc. So rather than sort of doing things just to try and get to net zero as quickly as we can, let's think about it. Like you say, step back. It will come. Everybody's on it, and I totally agree. Let's invest in these companies that have got the innovation there. I'd love to see our country move forward, innovating. These small, because we've been renowned for that. We're entrepreneurial in this country, and that's been squashed. That's been squashed by the high taxation, and the big corps. To be honest, we need to bring them back. We need to bring back the entrepreneurs, encourage them to come up with creative ideas to make things that will help us get to net zero, but at a steadier pace, not impacting on our environment, not impacting on our daily life. Absolutely for it, absolutely support it, but let's just be sensible about it.
Barbara, so we've gone through the concerns over lack of policemen and women on the street. Infrastructure, you've mentioned floodplains, and I've always thought that's not a good idea to build houses in floodplains, etc. Are there other challenges in regard to, as I've found in other parts of the country, the whole thing of sewage systems, etc. So you're talking about a strain on the infrastructure of those kind of issues. I would have thought maybe coming up as well. But we've covered GPs. You've said that you were in the A&E the other day. Late at night, you went in there. There's a 13-hour wait. Well, for someone who is rather, not in your case, not in my case, but someone who was rather elderly arrived there, that could be the difference between life and death. That raises a very serious issue, and also about gym, swimming pool facilities, and just regenerating the town's entrepreneurialism. How do we, Barbara, how do we excite young people? What are the employment opportunities for young people in your constituency? If they're not there, what would you like to see come back? What could we bring back? What about the history that the area relates to?
Well, this region is cotton building industry. So, we've got a lot of old cotton mills, etc. That's the history. The history was industry, and I'd love to see industry come back. We've got to be realistic. Life is different now. But again, this is what I would like to see, the innovation of, where we are now with obtaining net zero targets and new ways of creative energy, electric vehicles, etc. We have those skills, or we should be bringing those skills, reskilling people with trades. Everybody doesn't need to go to university. We need people with trades, and it needs to be taught in the local colleges. I mean, we have got some big colleges around here. It should be investing in trades, and I just think if we, for example, the Reform UK policy is to increase the tax allowance to £20,000 instantly. We'd do that straight away. That would have a massive impact on a lot of people around here. The general population aren't particularly affluent, and that would help a lot of people to get off the breadline of having to be, having credit support and things, universal credit. They would then be encouraged to go back to work. Get them back into work, get them retrained, reskilled. It will cost, it's investment, but it will pay for itself in the long run. There's a lot of people who have been unfortunate, perhaps not got the education that they deserved, but are bright, clever people and have found the way in their early 20s, and then they need to be nurtured. They need to be nurtured and given an opportunity to reskill, whether it's, as I say, a trade or, there's lots we need in the skills. We've been importing the skills for too long. That's been a lot of the problem. We've imported cheap labour, and it's pushed a lot of our local workers out of the market. So hopefully the tide's going to turn on that now. But definitely it's a reskilling for the local population. That's what they need. So by offering this increased tax allowance, that would help. Then the reduction of taxes, reduction of corporation tax, etc., that will help massively with local tradespeople. Will encourage them to grow. When they grow, they will employ these people who have been reskilled, and so it continues. So that's where we need to be going. We need to be, rebooting, giving people a bit of hope almost, which is a sad thing to say, but just, a little bit of it can be done. These young people who, I feel so sorry for them, that can't get on the property ladder. It's too, the house prices are too high. They've got everything going against them at the moment, and all this ability and youth that's being wasted. We really need to be tapping into it before they become too disillusioned. So yeah, you've met our local candidate for Ashton-under-Lyne, Rob Barracliff, and he's absolutely lovely lad. And it's just great to see young people energised and fighting for their generation, and that's what we need. We need young people in politics to make that change and encourage them with new ideas.
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, Rob is a terrific candidate, and when you meet people like him at the age of 25, and there are one or two other young people who are involved, they are an absolutely incredible inspiration. They really are.
Yeah.
And all credit to them. And you raise a very good point, and this point has come up, which is about apprenticeships, which is about not every young person having to go to university and to do particular education that in many ways we think is relevant, but sadly puts them in tremendous debt. So we are needing our, electricians, plumbers, roofers, tilers, etc. And then what about is there an agricultural college in your area where young people are able to go and train with farming skills? Is that in your area?
No, I mean, I'm not sure. I've got an idea. It's a fair distance away, the nearest agricultural area. Now, this actually comes into another idea, and it's just my pet idea. But when I was in campaigning in at a different area, Denton, still Tameside, and there was a local farm that they wanted to expand. It was Greenbelt area. They wanted to expand the local, it's called Bredbury Industrial Estate. They wanted to expand it onto the Greenbelt. I fought against that, and it was a different council, Stockport Council, and they rejected the application. But I thought that at the time, I'm just a big believer in bringing agriculture back into the domain. And I thought that area, it was previously pasture land for horse riding, just stables. And that could have been used, actually, that massive area of 50 odd acres for like an agricultural area, as you say, and bring the schools to show how, I mean, I don't know how feasible it would have been, but it was just an idea, an area where people can train and learn about the land. You used to have to start young. When I was a young girl, we used to go into Denton Woods and they'd explain the flowers, they'd explain the trees and show them to us. And it stuck with me, many years later, and I still remember. And it's just making that connection, bringing the youngsters, making that connection with the outdoor. And if we keep bulldozing over our farmland, our pasture land, they're not going to have that connection. They're just going to think that everything's a chicken nugget, rather than where it actually comes from. Yeah. But yeah, going back to agricultural centres, I would imagine it's fair distance away, and that would be a good idea. We just need to bring them back to the forefront, our farmers, and give them the credit that they deserve. Give them the credit that they deserve, because they work long hours. Absolutely. Hours. Yeah.
Barbara, as we're coming to the last couple of minutes, what about hustings? Is there opportunities for you to speak in public meetings with other candidates? Is there possibilities of radio interviews, press? What's happening? I know that you've got a lot of volunteers helping you on the streets and etc., which is fantastic. So is there opportunities for public engagement to explain what the policies are? What your vision is for the constituents?
The next thing, it's not a hustings. It's tomorrow. I'm going to be at Stalybridge Carnival. We're going to be at Stalybridge Carnival. We've got a tabletop, so people can come along, chat to me, chat to Rob as well. We're going to be there with some of our supporters, just explaining our policies, explaining, and just meeting and greeting. If they've got any questions, they can ask me questions. So we will be visible tomorrow at a stall at Stalybridge Carnival in Cheetham Park. There is a hustings possibly being organised for this week, but nothing's been confirmed. So I will put that on Facebook pages and and get word out if it comes to fruition, because I'm not sure of a location. But I will be out and about leafleting. We're all self-funded in Reform UK. We haven't got the big unions. We haven't got the big party, donations. We have to fund ourselves. And people have been kind enough and been blown away. I opened a GoFundMe page and people donated. And that's what's allowed me to buy the leaflets. I've bought the leaflets and now we're out. We're going to be out. I know it's late in the day, but it's a snap election. And I've explained I do work. I work weekends as well as a carer, as well as doing accounts during the week. So I do have to, but I've got so many volunteers. They are just lovely, lovely people who I've never met before. A lot I've never met before, and they're helping me. And they're going to be out. And we're going to have a couple of days leafleting together in the local areas, just to sort of show that we're out there. So around Stalybridge, around Maudsley, we're going to be hitting that Thursday, Friday. So if you see us on the streets, come and say hello. I'll knock on your door, and if you want to have a chat, I'm happy to have a chat and chat furthermore. So that would be nice to meet everybody.
Barbara, brilliant, because the message I get is that other political parties have taken the constituents of Stalybridge and Hyde, etc., for far too much for granted.
Yeah.
And as your vision is, it is time for change. And I wish you every blessing in that. And just to encourage you to say, when you're out and about, take pictures of people, your interaction with people, and use that social media to the best of your ability. So Barbara, is there anything that you would like to say, any more that you've forgotten? I think we've covered a lot of ground.
Yeah, I'm trying to. I think I'm happy that we seem to have covered most of what I wanted to say. I just want to say thank you to everybody. Thank you to everybody who supported us so far, and those that are going to vote for us. And I know Labour is saying if you want change, vote for them. But if you want real change, you vote Reform UK on the 4th of July.
Well, there seems to be no difference between Labour and Conservative whatsoever. So yes, and I think the biggest fight you've got is voter apathy, isn't it? So that is something that you're really getting out there and challenging. Barbara, I just want to thank you so much for your time. I'm gonna play us out, but please stay with me. And as I always say, I can then officially say goodbye on the other side. So just thank you so much. People know where to find you if you would like to step forward and volunteer and help Barbara, you know how to get hold of her. And I will then have everything in the description box below. I will check in with Barbara to say, put this in, put that in. But I just want to thank you for spending your time with me. So thank you very much indeed.
And thanks to you, Mark. Really appreciate it.
Not at all. Goodbye. Speak to you soon.